A gentleman modified his wireless internet password, prompting his neighbor to contact emergency services about him. However, when law enforcement officers arrived, they discovered something much more troubling. Darius Coleman wasn't someone who enjoyed unwanted scrutiny. He performed his job remotely, maintained his property well, and only interacted with neighbors when absolutely required. Generally, people didn't bother him, which suited him perfectly. That changed when one straightforward choice brought him into the spotlight. Everything began on a Thursday evening in Crestwood, Missouri. Darius had completed an extensive morning of professional duties and chose to pause by testing his internet connection speed. Recently, his wireless network had been malfunctioning, running slower than normal, experiencing delays during video conferences, and stuttering while streaming audio. Initially, he assumed his service provider was simply unreliable, but something felt wrong, so he investigated further. Opening his router configurations on his mobile device, he spotted a connected device he didn't recognize. The identifier wasn't merely random characters and digits. It appeared someone had deliberately named it Crestwood_I_01. That seemed strange. Darius resided by himself. He didn't have numerous devices linked to his wireless network, apart from his mobile phone, computer, and television. He wasn't someone who shared his password freely either. So who exactly was utilizing his internet connection? Irritated, he chose to disconnect every unfamiliar device from the network and change his password. He walked outside for better reception, positioning himself against his house's exterior while entering the new login information. That's precisely when Melanie Foster noticed him through her kitchen window. She observed Darius standing in his driveway, staring at his mobile device, his fingers rapidly tapping the screen. To her, it appeared suspicious. She had never felt comfortable around him, not for any concrete reason, but because he seemed uninterested in neighborhood involvement. He skipped community gatherings, rarely conversed with anyone, and now here he stood outside, manipulating something on his phone. Her thoughts immediately went to the worst possibility. He was engaging in cybercrime. She didn't understand what or why, but she sensed it intuitively. Something was amiss. Before she could reconsider, she grabbed her phone and called emergency services. "Yes, I need to report suspicious behavior. My neighbor is outside doing something with his phone. I'm not sure what it is, but it seems questionable. Can you dispatch someone to investigate?" The operator posed several questions, but Melanie lacked real answers. She simply repeated the same concern. "He's scheming something. I'm certain of it." Police were dispatched, and Darius remained unaware that his peaceful afternoon was about to become a complete investigation. Neither of them realized the actual threat had nothing to do with Darius whatsoever. Darius had just completed updating his wireless password when he heard the sirens. At first, he barely noticed. Perhaps they were heading elsewhere. But then he saw the police vehicle decelerate and park directly outside his residence. Two officers emerged. One was a tall, broad-shouldered man with angular features, Detective Louis Navarro. His partner, Officer Brielle Carter, had a smaller build, but carried herself with quiet confidence. Darius released a slow breath. "Here we go." He remained in place as the officers approached, Navarro's hand positioned near his belt, not on his weapon, but sufficiently close to convey a message. "Sir," Navarro called out, voice controlled, "we received a report about some questionable activity. Care to explain what you're doing?" Darius frowned, looking between the officers. Questionable activity? He was standing on his own property. "I'm updating my wireless password." His tone showed mild confusion, but he kept his voice steady. He understood how these situations could escalate. Navarro exchanged a brief glance with Carter before returning his attention to Darius. "Do you reside here?" Darius nearly chuckled. What sort of question was that? His vehicle was in the driveway. His name appeared on the mailbox. "Yes," he said, folding his arms. I've resided here for 3 years. Before Navarro could respond, a voice interrupted the conversation. He's being dishonest. Darius turned, and there she was. Melanie Foster standing on her porch, arms crossed, observing everything like she was the neighborhood's security officer. He's constantly outside doing something, she continued, fiddling with his phone, looking around like he's monitoring people. Now he's out here standing in the identical spot for 10 minutes, just typing away. Darius couldn't believe it. Was she serious? I was accessing my router configurations, he stated flatly, because someone I don't recognize has been using my wireless network. Melanie scoffed. Oh, certainly, and I'm supposed to accept that. Navarro addressed her. Ma'am, do you possess any proof that Mr. Coleman has committed something unlawful? Melanie hesitated, because, naturally, she didn't. She simply had an uncomfortable feeling. I don't know, she confessed. I just believe you should investigate. Navarro exhaled, his patience wearing thin. He turned back to Darius. Sir, would you object if we quickly examine your router configurations just to resolve this? Darius tightened his jaw. He shouldn't need to prove anything, but he also understood how these circumstances could spiral out of control. Fine, he muttered, unlocking his phone and accessing the settings. Here, take a look. Navarro leaned forward, eyes examining the list of connected devices. That's when his expression shifted, because there it was. Crestwood_I_01. Who possesses that device? Navarro inquired. Darius shook his head. Not me. Officer Carter stepped forward, eyebrows raised. So someone's been utilizing your wireless network without authorization? Darius nodded. And I don't believe they were simply stealing internet access. Examine the connection records. It's been operating continuously. Someone's been monitoring. Navarro's posture changed. This wasn't merely a trivial neighbor disagreement anymore. Melanie, still positioned on her porch, suddenly appeared uncomfortable. Wait, what do you mean monitoring? Darius turned to her, eyes cold. I mean, someone has been conducting surveillance, and they might be watching all of us. But the real question is, who? Silence descended over the front yard. The significance of Darius's words lingered in the air. Melanie, who had been so confident she was correct, suddenly looked uneasy. Surveillance? That wasn't what she anticipated hearing. Navarro straightened up. All right, he said, voice more serious now. Let's go inside. I want to see precisely what we're dealing with. Darius didn't object. He guided the officers into his house, his frustration simmering just beneath the surface. He hadn't committed any wrongdoing, yet here he was being treated like a suspect in his own residence. Melanie hesitated before following. She wasn't certain why, but something told her she needed to hear this. Once inside, Darius placed his phone on the dining table and displayed the router settings on his laptop screen. The device list appeared. There it was again. Crestwood I-01. Still connected, still active. Officer Carter leaned in, scanning the details. Can you determine what type of device this is? Darius clicked around, his fingers moving rapidly. I can't identify exactly, but... He opened the activity logs and froze. Navarro noticed the change in his expression. What is it? Darius's throat went dry. It's been accessing camera feeds. The room went completely silent. Melanie blinked. I don't understand. What camera feeds? Darius's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Mine. He rotated the laptop around. My home security cameras. Someone's been logging in and watching my live feeds. Carter's expression tightened. You're saying someone has been spying on you through your own security system? Darius exhaled sharply. That's precisely what I'm saying. But then his stomach dropped, because the more he scrolled, the more he realized it wasn't just his cameras. His system had flagged multiple IP addresses. Some belonged to his network, But others, different homes. Oh, this is terrible, Darius murmured. Navarro leaned closer. What do you mean? Darius tapped the screen. Listen, whoever this is, they're not just watching me. They're watching other people in the neighborhood. Melanie stepped back, shaking her head. No, that can't be correct. Darius turned to her. You certain about that? He clicked another log. A new feed opened. A dimly lit hallway appeared, then a living room, then a bedroom. Melanie gasped. Wait, that's… Darius didn't even need to ask. He recognized it immediately. It was her house. She stumbled backward, pressing a hand to her mouth. Navarro's voice was sharp. How the hell is this happening? Darius gritted his teeth. If I had to speculate, someone in the neighborhood established a fraudulent network, a wireless signal that appears like a normal connection. People unknowingly connect to it, and once they do, their devices become compromised. Carter's face darkened. You mean a man-in-the-middle attack? Darius nodded. Exactly. Melanie's voice trembled. So you're saying someone's been… what, watching me? My family? Darius's eyes didn't leave hers. That's precisely what I'm saying. She collapsed into a chair, her hands shaking. Oh my God! Navarro's jaw tightened. All right. We need to identify who's behind this, and quickly. But what none of them knew was that the person responsible was much closer than they thought. Detective Navarro didn't waste time, pulled out his radio, and requested cybercrime assistance. This is larger than we anticipated, he muttered to Officer Carter. If someone's operating a surveillance network, they're not just invading privacy. They're committing a serious crime. Carter nodded, her expression grave. And if we don't stop them now, who knows how far they've already gone. Darius, still seated at his laptop, was already investigating deeper. He wasn't a cyber criminal, but he understood enough about network security to trace where the data was being transmitted. He opened the IP logs and froze. Wait, this can't be right. Navarro looked up. What? Darius turned the laptop screen so they could see. The data isn't going to some random server. It's being sent to an address right here in the neighborhood. Melanie's eyes widened. You mean someone nearby is behind this? Darius nodded. It's coming from a house just a few doors down. Navarro's expression darkened. Can you identify exactly which one? Darius worked quickly, cross-referencing connection timestamps with signal strength. Within minutes, he had a match. His stomach dropped. He recognized the address. Melanie did too. No, she whispered, shaking her head. That's… Darius cut her off, voice cold. That's Brandon's house. Brandon Foster, Melanie's own nephew, a 22-year-old college student who had moved in with her a few months ago. He was quiet, always on his computer, barely socialized. Now suddenly, things were making complete sense. Melanie's face went pale. No, that doesn't make sense. Brandon isn't. He wouldn't. Carter stepped in. We need to speak with him now. Melanie hesitated. She didn't want to believe it. But deep down, something in her gut told her it was true. I'll take you to him, she murmured. Darius stood. I'm coming too. Navarro gave him a sharp look. No, you stay here. Let us handle this. Darius clenched his jaw. He hated sitting back when he was the one who uncovered everything, but he also knew pushing back wouldn't help. Fine, he muttered, but you'd better get the truth out of him. But the truth, it was even worse than they imagined. Melanie's hands shook as she led Navarro and Carter down the street to her house. Every step felt heavier than the last. Brandon, the kid she had taken in, the one she helped through school. It couldn't be him. And yet, deep down, a voice in her head whispered, what if it is? She opened the front door, calling out, Brandon, can you come downstairs for a minute? No answer, Navarro exchanged a look with Carter before stepping inside. "We're going up." Melanie didn't argue. She just wrapped her arms around herself, her breath unsteady. They climbed the stairs, reaching Brandon's bedroom door. It was shut, no sounds inside. Navarro knocked hard. "Brandon, this is the police. We need to talk." Still nothing. Then the sound of movement, a chair scraping, footsteps. Carter's hand hovered over her gun. "Open the door now." Slowly, the knob turned. The door creaked open, revealing Brandon Foster. He looked startled, nervous, eyes darting between Navarro, Carter, and his aunt. His hands fidgeted at his sides. "What's going on?" he asked, voice tight. Navarro studied him. "We have reason to believe you've been accessing private security cameras in the neighborhood. You want to explain that?" Brandon's face barely flinched, but his fingers curled slightly, like he was gripping something invisible. "What? That's ridiculous," he scoffed. "I don't know what you're talking about." Carter wasn't buying it. "Mind if we check your laptop?" His jaw tightened. "You don't have a warrant." Navarro stepped closer. "Brandon, we can get one, but right now, we're giving you a chance to tell us the truth before this gets worse." A long, tense beat. Then Brandon exhaled. "Look, He ran a hand through his hair. "I wasn't doing anything illegal, okay? Navarro cut him off. "Then why is your IP address linked to a network breach involving multiple homes?" Brandon froze. Melanie's voice broke. "Brandon, please tell me you're not involved in this." His eyes darted to her, and for the first time his mask cracked. "I didn't mean for it to get this far," he muttered. "It started as a joke. I wanted to see if I could get into someone's Wi-Fi, just to mess with them." Navarro's voice was sharp. "So you admit you hacked into the network?" Brandon hesitated, then nodded. Melanie's breath caught in her throat. Brandon kept going, voice faster now. "It was just supposed to be a prank, but then I saw the security cameras and I got curious." Carter's eyes narrowed. "Curious or obsessed?" Brandon didn't answer. Navarro's patience ran out. "How many people have you watched?" Silence. Then his voice dropped. "I don't know." Melanie staggered back. Oh my God. Brandon looked at her, and for the first time, real regret crossed his face. "I swear I wasn't hurting anyone," he said. Navarro didn't let him finish. "Brandon, Foster, you're under arrest for unauthorized access of a computer network and unlawful surveillance." Brandon went pale. "Wait, no, Carter was already pulling out her cuffs. Melanie turned away, covering her face as tears welled in her eyes. Darius had been right all along. And the worst part? She had called the cops on him when the real danger had been inside her house the whole time. But this wasn't over yet. Brandon didn't resist. He stood there, wrists bound in cuffs, staring at the floor as Navarro read him his rights. It was over. Melanie's breath was shaky. She couldn't even look at him. This was her nephew, the boy she had taken in, fed, supported, and he had been violating the privacy of their entire neighborhood. Navarro guided Brandon toward the door, but before stepping out, he turned to Darius, who had been watching from the sidewalk. "You were right," Navarro admitted. "If you hadn't caught this, we might never have known." Darius didn't say anything at first. He just let out a slow breath, looking between Brandon and Melanie. Then finally, he spoke. "You know what's crazy?" His voice was calm, but the weight behind it was unmistakable. "I was out here minding my business, changing my own Wi-Fi password, and yet somehow I was the one who got the cops called on me." Melanie flinched. She had no defense, because there was none. I was wrong," she murmured. "I made an assumption, and it was completely unfair." Darius let that sit in the air for a moment. Then, shaking his head, he turned toward his house. "I don't need an apology," he said over his shoulder. "Just do better." And with that, he went inside. Navarro and Carter exchanged a look before leading Brandon toward the patrol car. Melanie stayed behind, standing alone in the middle of the street. The truth had been right in front of her all along, but she had been too busy looking at the wrong person. And that mistake, it would haunt her for a long, long time. Assumptions have consequences. Jumping to conclusions based on bias or paranoia can ruin innocent people's lives, while the real danger goes unchecked. Instead of making judgments without evidence, take a step back.